The first vision that we share with the nation is to build a harmonious, peaceful, prosperous, multiracial, multi-religious, social democratic society based on justice, equality, integrity, and meritocracy. That was our dream. And everyone can accept that. This is something anyone from any political persuasion find it a dream, a vision that they can embrace. Then we begin to dream that we will not just have a long vision that takes 100 years to realize. We want to see the realization of this dream in our generation. We want to go from third world to first world in one generation. And sociologists define one generation as 35 years. So it was 1965. You add 35 years, will be the year 2000. So we want to see Singapore become a first world nation. Our leaders have tasted, they have seen first world nation. And we know that these countries called the first world nations at that time, they didn't start automatically as first world nations. Some of them came from undeveloped, uncivilized, barbaric societies, like the Vikings, where they just go and attack another group of people, kill the men, take the women, take whatever they can. So all these countries develop. But most of the first world nations have 100, 200, 300 years to develop their society. But for us, we decide that we can't afford that long. We want to see the realization of Singapore transform into a first world in our lifetime. Even when our hair is gray and white, that's fine. We want to see Singapore transform in one generation so that our children, our grandchildren, and the generation to come can enjoy a first world nation. We also dream about a nation that are led by men and women of integrity. We want a corruption-free society. So we draw a line that from now on, there will be zero tolerance for corruption. Because corruption is so wasteful. It's like a big container and we ask everyone in the nation to help fill. But then it's leaking like crazy. So the economy, the nation cannot grow. So we have that as our value, our founding value. We want a disciplined, hardworking, skillful, educated, and productive nation. We set our sight and say we benchmark with the most productive labor force in the world. And we look around the world and say, how are the people, the standards they have set. So we have decided to be a very disciplined, hardworking, skillful, and productive nation. The next value we have is delay of gratification. We know that at the beginning, we have very little resources. Our economy can only support so much development. In the early days, we did borrow money, but every time we borrow money from any bank or financial institution or from any nation, we put it in our books that these are sovereign debts, and we make sure that we pay interest and the principal always on time. We never default on any loan. We never ask for forgiveness. And today, Singapore is a nation that have no external debt. In fact, we have been saving, and we have a huge reserve now. Some estimated probably over $500 billion US, backed by solid gold. Our currency is not just a piece of paper, but it's backed by solid gold. Then we want a nation that is self-reliant. That means we do not believe in looking for aid around the world from the developed nation and say, help us, give us aid. Because we have not seen any nation that got developed through aid. After the Second World War, Germany and Japan surrendered to the Allied forces. They were the only two nations supported by the Marshall Plan in the US because US felt they have a responsibility after defeating these two nations to help them rebuild. But after that, you see no countries receiving aid, financial aid, economic aids that have ever developed that way. So we decide that we will learn to delay gratification and learn to save and spend with what we have for what we need. Then we begin to dream about a clean, a safe, and a green nation. We went around the equatorial belt around the world and looked for flowers and shrubs and asked them for a gift. So we were able to collect 8,000 varieties and tested them in Singapore. And those flowers and shrubs that do well, we propagate them. And today, Singapore is a garden city. Beautiful flowers and trees and shrubs. And many of the African beautiful flowers are found in Singapore. It's not only very green, it's very safe. And so people are happy, they live in Singapore, they're not threatened. And it's a very healthy place. Another value that we have is a tripartitism, where three important institutions in society, the government, the business, and the labor, come together and they collaborate together to have a win-win-win situation. So government and the labor and the business are not at loggerheads. Everyone wins, all right? They cooperate to build and grow the nation, the economy. But how do we do that? We do not do that just by trying to outmaneuver the other institution. They came together based on productivity. So every month, every sector of the industries report what they have accomplished and produced. All right, every sector, financial sector, the oil sector, the petrochemical, the non-oil, services, manufacturing, all of them report. Every quarter, the aggregate report is published in hard copies and soft copies. And by the end of the fourth quarter, we know exactly how the country performed. Minus inflation, we know the growth of the economy, and based on that, this National Wage Council, under the tripartite alliance, they recommend wage increase, minus inflation. So every year, the public sector immediately implement it on January, the turn of the country. Based on the recommendation of this National Wage Council, they increase their salary. If it's 8%, immediately 8% public sector gets salary increase. Private sector must do what is recommended, more but not less. They can do more. So we have gradual wage increase. And this system works in Singapore. We have very good cooperation between government, business, and labor. Then we dream about a day where there will be employment for all. And today we have accomplished that. Our people get good jobs, good salary, and no Singaporean can complain they cannot find a job unless they are lazy or they are too choosy. So everyone can find a job. We have to invite 1.5 million people to work in Singapore every day, every year. But these people, they get their long-term employment from across just the other side of the causeway. It's the southern tip of Malaysia. Every day, about 100,000 people will drive over to Singapore and work early morning, and then they return by evening. And they live in Malaysia, but they enjoy the high wages of Singapore. We also dream about quality, affordable, and sustainable public housing. Today, every Singaporean have a home. 90% of the population live in modern home, but they are not renters, they are owners. We make it possible that every Singaporean family can own a home. Even a young couple, after they graduate, the government will provide them a mortgage loan. When you borrow money from the government, is only 2.6% for your house. Every Singaporean have to, by law, save 20% of his gross salary and put it in this savings fund called Central Provident Fund. And because it's a savings, we get interest, 2.5% interest a year for the money we put with the government. And when we borrow money from the government to buy a house, it's only 2.6%. The spread is 0.1%. And so now every young couple who started their family can own a home. You don't need to wait until you are a middle-aged person. Every young couple can have their own home. And you're allowed twice in your lifetime to do that. You start with the size of a home that you can afford. And when the children come, your salary has increased, you can ask for a bigger home, sell it at the market price and buy a second one. So every Singaporean using this strategy has become middle-income people. Because when you sell your home, you're allowed to keep the profit. Singapore intentionally have a no capital gains tax so that this law allows the housing to be used as wealth creation strategy. So every Singaporean is allowed twice in his lifetime. And when he's old enough, he can even sell his second home after he stays in it for 5 years, and then he can go and stay with his children. Now, another value that we dream about is quality education. Today, we have some of the best quality education in the world. In math, in sciences, our students all do very well there. We dream about justice for all. No one can get away with breaking the law, breaking crime, regardless how connected, how important this person is. No one is above the law. Today, you don't have to be rich to have justice. Justice is for all. And our justice is known as one of the most independent and impartial institution, our Justice Department. Now that we have our vision and our values clarified, the next step we went in our journey of nation development and transformation is to master plan. We start with concept plans, all right? That we can plan concepts that is revised, reviewed, revisited every 10 years. So our concept plans go for 10 years. We have concept plans that go for 20 years and 30 years. Then we focus, we break them down into 5-year detailed master plan. And that is published in the software, in the hardware, so that the whole society know these next 5 years, what are the areas we are focusing on to develop. So Singapore have been very disciplined in following our master plan, where we want to go, and we were all committed and disciplined to follow our master plan. And today, with our master plan, we have some of the best planners in the world. Initially, we learned from everywhere in the world, send our young people to learn, and now we know how to do it, and we're able to help other nations in this area. The next step then is capacity building. How do we build capacity for the nation, the whole country? How can we compete with the rest of the world? How do we do well? And then, how do we build capacity for the people of Singapore? So looking at the first area, how do we build capacity for the nation? We need to build institutions, all right? The right kind of institution that are effective and able to do what they are set up to do. The first things first. The first business that any government, when they came into power, should be thinking about is how to help the population put food on the table. Otherwise, regardless how grandiose your manifesto, and people are poor, people are hungry, they cannot even put food on the table when they work, then that vision, that manifesto is no use. So we focus very pragmatically on job creation. So the first thing we established, we look around Singapore, there was an area on the western side of Singapore, there is a mangrove swamp, characterized by malaria, snakes, crocodiles, disease. So we find the most educated, the most trained and qualified person, Dr. Goh Keng Swee. Came back from the London School of Economics, was part of the founding team. And he was tasked to turn that wasteland into an industrial city. And he did. So the Jurong Town Corporation was formed. We drained the mangrove swamps, we fill it up, we put in the best infrastructure we know at that time. At that time, fiber optics was just discovered. We decided to go straight to fiber optic and skip the copper wires. Today, this is a modern industrial city. Every kind of services and utilities and amenities can be found there. Investors can come and build their own factories, or they can rent and lease out heavy-duty industrial factories in the Jurong area. So we are now able to attract over 7,000 large multinational corporations from around the world. They come and build their factories and their manufacturing facilities. And as they set up, they have to use Singaporeans as employees. And when they employ us, we learn, we get knowledge and technology transfer. And they teach skills to our people. So this is a very important institution that makes sure that we have good industries that come. And our industrial journey has stages. The first stage was about people-intensive industries because we want to solve the unemployment problem. Then our second stage, about 10 years later, when we have already a lot of people with jobs, was skill-intensive industries. We want industries that will teach our people skills. Then we went to the third stage of industrialization, that is capital-based, where we use machines and automations. Then we move to the fourth stage, where it's technology-based. We begin to apply and adopt a lot of technology in manufacturing and production. So we begin to produce high-tech products like chips, like wafer, computer parts. And now today, Singapore is in the highest stage of the industrial industries in the world. It's called knowledge-based industries. That means we base on biogenetics, bioengineering, and we produce some of the most modern medicine. And the biggest pharmaceutical companies come to Singapore. So today, Singapore, the labor is very, very educated, highly skilled, highly productive, and they're paid very well. The next institution was the Economic Development Board. After we prepare the place, we have another team that go out and visit all the first world nations and tell the multinational corporations, come to Singapore, put your factories, your manufacturing plants here. We'll give you incentives, we'll give you tax holidays, we'll help you, we'll make sure that you have a very productive labor. And whatever you produce you cannot sell in Singapore, we'll help you to export them. So all these enablers, we were able to attract over 7,000 multinational corporations. And they were supported by over 125,000 SMEs, small and medium enterprises. So today, Singapore is industrialized. And these two institutions make sure that we are always friendly to investors. Investors come to Singapore, they don't have to run around to 40 different government offices to get permission. One-stop shop. Just the Economic Development Board will honor whatever they agree on. How much electricity you want, how much water you want, how much telecommunication you want, high-speed broadband, you want T-line, whatever you need, we make sure they all have it. Today, Singapore is one of the most desired places for foreign executives to raise their family and to work and to play. They live in Singapore. The third capacity building we did for the nation was the Trade Development Board. And we produce a lot of goods and services, so we cannot consume them all. We have to sell it. And so we make sure that whatever is produced can get to the markets. Singapore today is one of the major transportation, what we call transshipment port in the world.